What's up, guys? My name is Logan, H-A-N-D, and this is Make It Happen TV. And this channel, for those of you that haven't stopped by here yet, this is your first time, this is a channel all about making it happen in business and in life. I've predominantly made my success by investing in real estate and by investing in franchises. Yes, that's correct. I own brick and mortar franchise locations, and I can show you how I did it and ways that I got myself into those types of businesses. So, real estate combined with investing in businesses and franchises is predominantly how I've gotten my success so far. And I'm only 27 years old, so I feel like I'm just getting things started, heading into my 30s and putting myself in a great position in life. But I had a lot of information and training and setbacks and things that kind of got me to where I am today. So I want to share a lot of those things with you so you can see the journey. So this episode today is all about one of the most common questions I get asked by my friends, other people that I know in business, and definitely people that are just starting out in life. Maybe it's your first time, or maybe you've gotten yourself to a position where you want to buy a home, and everyone asks, "Hey Logan, should I be renting or should I be buying a house?" So, let's dive into it. At the very least, you'll get a good understanding of the benefits and the minuses of both different situations, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it is that I do with my personal life and my personal situation. So, for me, I've been renting for about the past, 8 years or so. I think I got my first apartment when I was about 20 years old, just finishing up college. And I've been renting ever since. And, by the time I was about 24, 25, I was actually in a position where if I wanted to buy a property, I could, but I just couldn't financially make sense of the things involved with buying a piece of real estate for me to live in personally. So, I am a big proponent of rent where you live and own what you can rent to others. And or commercial properties, which are essentially, you're renting to others, but those others are businesses, things that cash flow. That's the problem with the home that you live in, is it's really not a great cash flowing machine. So, let's take a look, let's dive in. We're going to transfer over to the infamous blackboard. Boom. Yeah, because whiteboards are for normal ass people. You dig? Anyways, sorry about that. That's my second personality. His name's Joseph. But we'll talk about him later. Let's get into the pluses and the minuses of renting versus buying. So let's check it out.
Hey guys. Now we're going to talk about buying a property. The next thing we'll talk about is renting. So I have this little piece of paper here because my blackboard over there is too reflective and it looks like total donkey shit. So we're going to go with piece of paper and I'll be down here orchestrating all of this for you. So let's begin.
So let's talk about the example first of buying a house, and I'm going to show you some of the pros, some of the cons, and let's jump right into it. All right, so here's your example of buying the house. Let's assume you're buying a house that's $250,000, which for most people that's probably pretty close to a starter home, depending on what market you actually live in. Here in Tampa, you could get a pretty decent home for $250, depends on where, not in like a desirable area, but most of the nicer stuff's going to start at $350 or $300 and on up from there. But let's assume that it's $250,000. Now, most of you, if you're just starting out, you're probably going to do one of the cheapest down payments that you can find, which is going to be anywhere from 3 to 5%. So let's assume that you go with the cheap one and you put 3% down on a $250,000 mortgage. That means you have to come up with $7,500 of your own cash, okay, into this deal. All right, so $7,500 cash, you've saved your money, you've worked real hard, and now that's what you got. You want to get your first home. All right, well, let's crunch the numbers. Let's take a look at this. you're most likely going to buy a home at what's called full market value, which means you're paying what we call retail, or 100% of the home's value based on today's current conditions and the state of the market. Unless you're finding distressed properties that you're going to renovate, fix up, and do all this other stuff to, it's highly likely you're going to be paying full market value, which means you're paying 100% of all that it's worth. All right, so now that you're tracking with me there, after taxes plus your insurance and your payments, your monthly payment is going to be around $1,650 per month. Now, I just used a simple online mortgage calculator. You can plug in all these numbers and Google it yourself, and you will find the exact same information. So, $1,650 per month is your monthly payment. Now, if you multiply that by 12, it gets you to a cost of living to live in that home of $19,800 per year. Great. Sounds fantastic. All right, so basically $20,000 right off the rip is going straight towards paying for your home and building this fairy dust equity that you think you have, but we'll get there later. All right, so after you have some maintenance, like let me give you some example. Remember, when you buy a home, you're responsible for taking care of everything. Not a landlord, not anybody else. You got to deal with it. You got to fix it. If you have a lawn, you're probably going to pay $50 to $75 a month. I use $75 a month for this example. And your lawn care is going to cost about $900 a year, unless you're going to do it yourself, but most people don't do that. So then you're going to have things like just ordinary repairs. Let's say you budget $100 a month for shit just breaking around the house, you know, stuff you need to fix, toilets, so on and so forth. So you spend $1,200 a year, and that brings your total annual cost to $21,900, assuming that nothing big in this property breaks, like the air doesn't go out, or the sinks don't get clogged, or anything that's very expensive, holes in drywall, so on and so forth. That's assuming nothing big happens that you need to repair. All right, so now we're here. We've spent our $21,000 a year, but guess what, guys? We're building equity, just like our mom and dad taught us, blah, blah, blah. Great. Well, do we really have equity? That's the question we want to know, because I would ask the question that you really don't, and this is where I'm going to show you. You purchased the house for $250,000, right? Now, in your first year, $13,668 is what actually went towards your principal and interest, okay? So, we're going to subtract that from the $250,000. We're also going to subtract out the $7,500 we placed in our deposit, because that obviously makes our mortgage balance come down. So now we have a balance here of $228,832. Sorry guys, I'm reading this upside down, so if I make errors, that's why. All right, so now we have that. Now, here's the big if. The question nobody really ever knows is, does the market appreciate within a year or 10 years or whatever? Well, in 2020, I would say it's statistically likely that the market is going to start correcting or coming down in value. Maybe it happens this year, maybe it's already happening now, or maybe it happens next year. But according to the laws of economics, this economy has definitely got to start getting worse, because I'm not really sure how it can start getting all that much better. So, let's just assume on the good end, the market appreciates by 3% and the house goes up 3% in value. More than fair to assume that could potentially happen. Now the property value is worth $257,500 instead of $250,000. Great, woohoo! We made we made $7,500. Great, or at least we lie to ourselves and make us think that we made that. Now, here's the problem with equity. In order to access your equity, or value that could be equivalent to cash, you have to liquidate that property and turn it into cash. So the cost of liquidating a piece of real estate, you have closing costs, which is typically about 2%, and then you have to pay 2 realtors to turn it into cash or sell it. And that's at 6%, assuming they don't charge you more than that. So you have 8% of cost of liquidating, which costs you an additional $20,600 just to turn your equity into cash. Now we are at this magical number of $200,000 $236,900. $236,900. Sorry, I am not the best at reading upside down. So now we're at this number. All right, well, now what do we have to subtract from that? Well, now we're going to subtract this 228 number from up here, which is what we were left at after we subtracted our down payment and the money from the year that went towards the principal and interest. All right, but what else do we have to subtract? Well, you also have the extra repair numbers of $2,100 a year from this other sheet that we didn't take out of that. Plus, you have this additional money that you guys spent for insurance, taxes, and the additional money that didn't go towards principal and interest, which equates to $6,132 for the year that you spent on things that didn't do with principal and interest. So insurance, maintenance, so on and so forth. You can go ahead and check my math on this because I just did it. Now, by the time you subtract all of those numbers, even with the market appreciating at 3%, you actually have lost $150 a year from your equation of not wasting money or throwing it away on rent so that you can build equity and have a nest egg. You actually lost money from doing that. And the other thing you lost is you lost potential income that you could have generated by borrowing the same amount of money. Now, if you're gonna borrow money from the bank, you better use it to make more money or have other people pay off the money that you borrowed, whether that's from a piece of real estate that cash flows or from a business like a franchise. So, I'm gonna show you what you could have done with that same loan and how it may be way more beneficial for you. So that's what we're gonna look at next. Alright guys, so now let's take a look at the scenario that involves renting versus buying that first property that we were looking at. So, let's say the same house from earlier, or at least a comparable home, or a comparable apartment or townhouse or whatever, rents for a little bit more money, because obviously rent's going to be more than a home purchase mortgage would be almost all the time. So let's say your rent is $1,800 a month. We know that, hey, look, right off the bat, yes, you are spending more money, but I'm going to show you how you're really not spending more money, and let me show you how. So it's $200 more expensive per month. All right, now here's the cool part. For those of you that have never rented before, but perhaps you've built your credit up and you have somewhat decent credit, most places, if you have good credit, will allow you to get away with only putting your security deposit and your first month's rent. A lot of landlords try to force people to pay first, last, and security deposit, but trust me, I've rented 8 places right now and I haven't paid last month at any of them. Because I have good credit, I'm able to negotiate paying less up front, and a lot of times what I do as a negotiation chip is I tell them that I'll give them a 60 days notice to vacate so that they don't have to worry about me just leaving them high and dry within a month, which allows them to back off wanting to collect that last month's rent. So let's assume you can get away with the same thing. Your down payment is going to be $3,600, which is 2 of your 1,800s. Yay! Alright, the cool thing about this $3,600, unlike your mortgage deposit, is that it is refundable, which means as long as you don't screw that place up, you can get all of this money back in a year or however long later when you decide to vacate. Now, that is a savings from compared to the $7,500 of cash that you had to use in the mortgage. You saved approximately $3,900. Now, the key thing with this is one of the main advantages of renting. There's less cash that you have to put into a place that in theory just costs you money. It doesn't really make you money. So when you have more cash to utilize, you can either invest that in maybe a business you have, an e-commerce business, or we're going to use the example of if you were to just invest it in another property that you were able to rent out. So we're going to take a look at just investing the savings from getting a mortgage on a property that you would then live in. Now, here are some of the benefits of renting. You have mobility. You can basically pick up and move within a month's notice or so, and there's no harm, no foul. You don't have to wait for a property to sell. You can move along and do wherever you want, or you can do like what I did and move every 12 months just because I have ADHD and I get bored of the place that I live, so I just fucking move. Very simple. All right, so you don't have to do any repairs as a tenant. The landlord pays for all that shit, so there's no maintenance, no repairs, no grass, no pool, none of that shit. You have less cash out of pocket, which is what I kind of explained in here in your deposit situation. It's far less than what you'd have to put down on a mortgage. Now, it's likely going to be a nicer place that you're renting compared to what the property you could finance will get you. Oftentimes, I find myself being able to rent homes that are much nicer than the homes or apartments that I would be able to finance or would want to finance that made sense to me. Last but not least is you will have typically amenities. So there's pools, there's gyms, there's laundry on site, there's all of these different things that you would normally have to supply or pay for in your own home that maybe an apartment complex or something like that will give you that would be extremely expensive to have in your house. So that's a plus and a benefit. So let's do the math because you know I'm all about the numbers and numbers don't lie, unlike humans. So $1,800 times 12 months means your cost of living in this rental is $21,600 or equivalent to $2,400 more than what it would cost you to get that mortgage on the previous example. However, it's not really that because there are some key things that you need to understand. Here you go. First thing is it's not really more because you kept $3,900 extra dollars of cash, which remember guys, cash is a fire, a flame, a vehicle. It's something you can use to generate more money and invest in opportunities. Now, so you're ahead $3,900, so it's actually still ahead by $500 when you subtract the cost of the increased price of living of $2,400. But here's the thing. What about this extra money of the $3,900? What happens if you're investing that? So then this equation changes, even further. Go ahead and edit that part out. So then this equation changes even further when you talk about being able to invest this particular amount of money. So let's just take a look at real estate, for example. So I saved myself $3,900. Let's assume I want to go invest that in something that may generate income. So from a real estate perspective, say you're going to buy a rental property that's about $100,000. Okay, you can get that same rental property with the same percentage down that we talked about in the previous example of 3%, which means you're going to invest $3,000 of this $3,900 into acquiring this rental property. Let's assume it's in pretty decent condition. Yeah, you might have to fix a few things, but not terrible condition where people couldn't live there. All right, so now you got yourself a rental property. Now, let's assume that all of these numbers are correct. I use the calculator of the mortgage calculator online, and by the time you pay your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, your monthly payment on this rental property is going to be a whopping $825, amortized over 30 years, and at an interest rate, I think it was about 4% roughly, somewhere in there. Now, let's assume you have a budget every single month of $75. So you're going to pay $825 plus every month you're going to set aside $75 for repairs. Maybe you spend more in some months and some months you don't have to pay for anything. So let's just say $75. But this property will rent for $1,100. So after you pay your $825 and your $75 for repairs, but you collected $1,100 in rent, you have a cash flow stream that is netting you a profit of $200 per month in income. Now, $200 per month times 12 months equals $2,400 per year, which again, guys, this is a really tiny example. I would never do a deal where you would only receive $200 of cash flow every month. To me, I'm only looking for properties where each door or unit will generate at least $500 to $600 a month or more. But if you did this equation and you had a duplex, you would have another side generating a whole nother stream of cash flow, which would turn this $200 into likely $1,200. So there you go. Now, With that being said, you turned this same borrowed money into a cash flow stream that will allow you to generate more income on a yearly basis. So assuming now we have an extra $2,400, that actually decreases the real cost of living on our rental unit that we love so much down even further by an additional $2,400, which, remember, I told you was the initial difference between that and the mortgage company. Now there's something else that we are forgetting. Well, now our living expenses are down to $19,200, which, by the way, is less than the initial $19,800 on the mortgage on the first house. Additionally, we have a savings of $600 per year. Per year. And the one thing that we're not even including in this equation is the appreciation that you're going to receive, or hopefully you would receive hypothetically, from the rental property. Now, even if it doesn't receive any appreciation and it just cash flows the whole time, hey, guess what? It's cash flowing the whole time. And the best part about all of it is that you are having somebody else pay for you to borrow money to then take that money and then generate more income with it. Now that is a much better equation. When other people pay your bills and pay for you to borrow money, that is much smarter than you just borrowing money, putting it into a house, and just paying to live in that house in the hopes and dreams that you have piles of equity one day. And maybe you get lucky and you buy things at the right time, but it's statistically likely that a good portion of the people that buy at a random part of the market cycle will end up with a property that's worth less than when it was purchased. And that all depends, of course, when you decide to sell and when you decide to buy. But in my opinion, 2020, we're starting to really look into the market should be moving in a declining, I don't really want to refer to it as a recession, but I think a better word is a correcting place. All right? So that's the main difference here on paper. Always crunch your numbers, guys, and this is how you'll make really smart financial decisions and put yourself in a position to be financially free and gain wealth over time, which is the goal of all of this. All right, guys, I have literally filmed this exact part probably 3 times now because for some reason my audio kept cutting out. I guess the batteries have to be changed. What the heck? I guess so. Anyways, I'm figuring this stuff out as to how YouTube filming actually works. Now, what I wanted to tell you was, now that you understand the pluses and the minuses of renting versus buying and what may be the smartest thing for you to do in your life, keep this in mind. First, you have to do you. What is the best thing for your life, and you have to live your life on the terms that are right for you and not right for anyone else. If you want to look at my opinion or my philosophies on what may be the smartest thing in terms of making your money make you money and making it worth more than what it is when you started with it, then there you have it. You have my opinion. I think that it's a lot more intelligent to borrow money from a bank to then put it in a place where it's going to generate income instead of just buy something that you're in love with that costs you money. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe later in life when you're worth millions of dollars, you can afford to do those types of things. But if you're still trying to build your initial wealth and become that millionaire, then you might think twice about putting your money in a place where it's going to make you more money. So, with that being said, I want to give you 2 pieces of my opinion or thoughts or whatever you want to call it that maybe will help you if you're going to go and put some money to work, buy a rental place, or maybe you still want to buy a home or whatever. So what I would recommend if you're just starting out and you're going to buy a property and you want it to generate income, I would look in the duplex, triplex, quadruplex arena. It has some benefits in the sense of you can still get a residential residential loan or a residential mortgage because it qualifies as if it was a single family home, but you have anywhere from 2 to 4 units. I would try to get a quadruplex if you could, although they can be pretty hard to get a hold of in certain marketplaces. But with a quadruplex, you can get a really low down payment percentage, somewhere between 2.5% to 3.5%, depending on if it still qualifies for FHA for you. But you can have 3 tenants paying all of your mortgage plus cash flow, plus you can put money in your pocket, and you won't even have to pay any of your own money to borrow that money. Plus the down payment will earn a pretty substantial cash on cash rate of return, and you'll have your money returned back to you in probably just, a handful of months to a year or something like that. I'm not sure, I'd have to crunch the numbers. The second option is you could look at a single family home. But if you're going to do it, I strongly recommend that you guys try to look at a home that maybe is outdated and there's things that you can add to it, you can renovate it, and try to get it the best that you can at a good price. Get some bids from some contractors to basically see what it would cost to renovate the home and do some updates to it, so at least you give yourself an opportunity to get some of the increased value from some of the things that you add. Just be careful that you don't buy the property at such a high price to then go and spend another $20,000 or $30,000 and you think that it's going to go up that much in value when in reality you spent too much money and now you're basically upside down in your equity. So whatever you do, be smart, crunch your numbers most importantly. And last but not least, get yourself a good deal. Beat people up on price, make some aggressive offers. Don't be shy, make good offers. It's okay if it feels awkward, it's okay if it feels weird. It's all a part of the process. And remember, it's your money. So nobody else gets to tell you what you get to offer because it's you who has to borrow it or take it out of your own pocket and give it to someone else. So be smart, multiply your money. I wish you all an amazing week, and don't forget to be a mogul. Make it happen. I'm out.